Alright, well, welcome back everybody, and now you're going to, well, we're still on the history of the Snow Elf race. Now we are coming to the next bit, which is the Fall of Icelandia and start of the War for Bavalon. Now, I would advise that you get a box of tissues, because this is quite an emotional part of this history, as you're going to find out. Okay. Now, this is a heartbreaking moment in my people's history. You may tell from the teardrops that make the ink of my parchment run down a little. But I must continue my work. My days are growing short, and my body becomes stiff and sore. But I shall continue my work. About 12.5 months after the pact was signed, the Dark Elves found out about what the Snow Elves were doing. They went to the Daedric princes of Oblivion. They formed their own alliance with the princes of that evil world, and made plans to march upon the Snow Elf cities with a Daedra army and all their Night Stalkers. In a darkness that would shroud the whole of the north. The attack came unexpected, as did the darkness that was known as the Long and Terrible Night. King Raja's squire came to warn them of the attack, but a Daedric arrow came out of nowhere and hit him in the back. Raja then ordered for all the soldiers of Icelandia to prepare for battle, get the civilians to safety, gather all fighting men and women, and to prepare for battle. The king was even going to fight on the front lines with his people and their allies. The Dark Elves had a greater army by number of Night Stalkers, Daedra, and Dark Elves alike. But the Snow Elves and humans were great warriors and were prepared to die to save their peoples. So the odds were stacked evenly. The defenders of Icelandia managed to last 4 hours until the attackers got through the main gate and into the city. The defenders were soon forced to retreat to the second level. The defenders of Icelandia fought for 19 hours, but the attackers just kept coming and coming, and then the Dark Lord of Oblivion and leader of the Daedra, Ben Howard himself, appeared and used his Dark One magic to help the attackers win the battle. But Raja didn't want to give up. He fought the Dark Lord at the cost of his own life, so his army, allies, and friends could escape and help get everyone to safety and head north to No Man's Land. But they were forced to leave Icelandia, which was now a ruin in the Grey Mountains. I told you that was going to be a very emotional moment. Now, the final days of the War for Bavalon. About 1.5 years after the fall of Icelandia, the Dark Elves marched upon every Snow Elf city, killing and burning as they went. The Snow Elves that managed to escape had gone north to No Man's Land, but the Dark Elves knew what they were doing and planned to spread their long and terrible night to No Man's Land and slaughter them all. Then, as the first humans and Snow Elves began to make plans of how they could fight back, the darkness reached them and hope seemed lost. But on the final day of the War for Bavalon, during the Battle of the Frozen Valley, a male wood elf named Emrys and a male human named Merlin came to help. This shocked everyone, partly because the two of them had been missing for 22 years. But they came in riding on the back of the great and powerful dragon, Parthenax. They also had powerful magic and weapons forged by the dwarves that were made of Iberian steel, and even burnished in dragon fire. Within 4 hours the battle was won by the Snow Elves and the first humans, because with the help of Emrys and Merlin, they slaughtered the Night Stalkers and drove them into the far north of No Man's Land. The Dark Lord and his Daedra banished back to oblivion, and the Dark Elves were banished from Bavalon for eternity, but not before they swore revenge on Emrys' race, and that they would return and plunge Bavalon into an eternal night and destroy the world of men. While Emrys and Merlin were heralded as heroes and given the names Emrys the Great and Merlin the Wise by the folk of Bavalon, the Dark Elves grew to hate Emrys and called him Emrys the Terrible, or Destroyer of Dark Elf Warriors. Emrys and Merlin were then known as the first magic wielders in Bavalon for 3 generations. Emrys was made a mage and Merlin a sorcerer, but they all knew that No Man's Land was dangerous, and the peoples of the south needed to be protected, and the humans of Bavalon would need families to lead them. So all elf-kind, dwarf, human, and half-breed gathered in the central lands of Bavalon to decide who would take each kingdom, who would rule each kingdom, and who would watch over the borders of No Man's Land. The warrior general of the first humans, Dragoon the Wise, was made king of the northern kingdoms. He would soon be the starter of the Jones family dynasty. The lieutenant, and Arthur the Mighty of the first humans, was granted the title of King of the Eastern Kingdoms, and would start the Crofts family dynasty. The corporal of the first humans, Matthew the Slayer, was made king of the Southern Kingdoms, and he would start the Smith family. And the first magician of the first humans, Catherine the Mischievous, was granted the title as Queen of the Western Kingdoms, and would begin the tradition of the sorcerers ruling the Western Kingdoms. All the elves of Bavalon, along with the dwarves and Matatians, half-human, half-dog peoples, agreed that humans should rule the kingdoms, because they were strong and noble leaders as well as great warriors. The Matatians vowed to be the protectors of the noble bloods and royal bloods of all race. And then they knew that they would need to have people to protect the kingdoms from what lurks in No Man's Land. So Dragoon and his trusted lords put together the plans for the foundation of the Northern Knights Guild. Unfortunately, that's where I will leave it for now. But don't worry, as the origin of the Northern Knights Guild will be in the next video. See you very soon.